Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends guys, welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens confuse customers as employees and still demand to be served. And in this episode, OP teaches a Karen a painful lesson to always keep their hands to themselves. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. So for some context, my husband and I are Italian, and we got married about 6 years ago. We went on our honeymoon to Southern California. So on our honeymoon, we went up to the San Francisco area. I don't remember the exact town, just know that it was near San Francisco. This is where my husband's friend's mother owned and operated a well-known authentic Italian restaurant. After we had ordered, my husband told the server that she needed to tell the owner that some friends are here. The owner comes out, and we greet each other, and we all began having a conversation in Italian. Then she left, and my husband got up to use the restroom. On his way there, he passed a table where a lady loudly said, "Hey, can we get some service here?" My husband simply says, "I will go find a server for you. I don't work here, and I'm in a bit of a hurry here." The lady then said, "I know you work here. I just saw you and your friend talking to the owner in Spanish or whatever gibberish you were speaking. Now take our order." My husband, not wishing to incite anything, just ignored them and went on his way, telling a server on his way that the lady's table needed help. I assume they got the help they were looking for. Later in the evening, the owner did her rounds of the restaurant, checking if everybody had a good meal. The owner approaches the Karen's table, and the lady said the food was fine, but the service here sucks. The owner asked who their server was, and the lady then points to my husband, who was finishing his meal, and said, "Him. Do you actually let employees bring their friends and eat with them when they should be helping customers?" The owner said, "He doesn't work here. He's a friend of my son's. He's here with his bride from Italy." The lady then scoffed and shrugs her away. Afterwards, we could hear the lady's friends giving her a hard time, telling her just because they speak the same language doesn't mean he works here, among other things. The lady was turning beet red at all this, and when it was time to leave, she marches over to our table, and she told my husband, "You are not fooling anyone. You work here, and your poor service reflects poorly on this place. I'm never coming back." She then points her finger at me and says, "I don't know who you're trying to fool here, but those are obviously fake." My husband had to explain to me later that she was talking about my chest. I wasn't even wearing anything revealing. She felt like she had to get the last word in and try to hurt me. Her friends then told her what she said was inappropriate and they should just leave before they made things worse, so they left. So that's my story about the time I had to deal with an entitled Karen. You know what? Karens are going to Karen, right? And you guys know how much they hate to be wrong, so much so that once she thought OP's husband was an employee, there was no going back. And the Spanish and gibberish thing, yes, Karen, in an authentic Italian restaurant, everyone speaks Spanish. Like seriously, how do people like that Karen even have friends? On this day, I was washing my dog at a local pet store. They have public dog baths there, with tons of signs about cost of using them. I was rinsing my dog off when I heard someone ask an employee, "Do you guys trim dogs' nails here?" I kept rinsing because I don't work there, and assumed they were talking to an employee. I also could not see them because the dog bath is somewhat tucked behind some shelves. I heard again, "Excuse me," and I still didn't look up as I don't work there. From here on, the guy will be referred to as CC, a graying man with a potbelly and deep voice. That's when I heard the dog wash gate open, so I glanced over my shoulder as there's multiple baths to use here, and saw someone staring at me with their hands up. The guy then pulls down his mask and said, "Excuse me, do you trim nails here?" I say to him, "Oh, I don't think they do, but I don't work here. You're gonna have to ask someone who does." He then says to me, "But I just asked you. Why would I go ask someone else?" I say to him, "Because I don't work here." He then says to me, "If you don't work here, why are you washing someone's dog?" I tell him I'm washing my own dog. This is a public bath. I then point at the sign that says, "Dog bath, $10 per use." He then asked, "So you don't trim nails here? You just wash dogs? How much would it be if I brought 2 dogs in?" And that prompts me to say, "Dude, I don't effing work here. I just told you 3 times. Go ask someone else." He then says, "I don't care if you work here or not. That's still bad customer service." Now, I already have a short temper with stupid people, but I was getting more than annoyed by this guy, especially since he kept getting closer and closer in a gated bathing area, and my dog was starting to get agitated by him. That's when I scream at him, "I don't work here, you effing idiot. I told you over and over again, F off." At this point, my dog starts growling, which he only does because of the excitement. He's not aggressive. That's when the guy storms off, slamming the gate and knocking over some dog treats. I could hear him from the other side of the store yelling at the cashier saying, "I want his name now. I want him fired." The cashier says, "I'm sorry, who are you talking about?" "The employee at the dog wash." The cashier then looks in my direction and says, "I'm the only employee here. That man washing his dog is a customer. Is there something I can do for you?" The idiot then screams, "Yes, get your manager on the phone." To which the cashier says, "But that man is not an employee. I'm the only employee here today." The guy screaming, "I don't care," and the cashier was silent for a few seconds and says, "I just told you he doesn't work here. I'm not calling the manager, but I'm gonna have to ask you to leave." Of course, the guy keeps saying, "I'm not leaving until you call your manager." And that's when the cashier says, "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." He then screams, "F you, I'm writing a review. This is terrible customer service," and storms out. I've never in my life been confused as an employee anywhere, especially at this pet store where they wear blue shirts and I was wearing a black hoodie. Either way, I don't work here. That guy was a frickin' nutcase, and some people really double down when they realize they're wrong, right? Like at that point, OP should have grabbed a hose and sprayed him to wake him up. And this person agrees. This person says, "This is the most aggravating and hilarious thing I've read this whole week. It would have taken everything in me not to shout, 'Go the F away,' while also spraying him with water. Like, how effing dense do you have to be to acknowledge someone not working there and still say, 'But that's still terrible customer service'?" So this is my first time making a post, and to kind of give people a picture of myself at the time this happened, I worked for the state, dealing with public benefits and assistance like SNAP, Medicaid, and the like. I'm also 6 foot 2 inches tall, and I used to be a powerlifter, and I weigh 340 pounds, so yeah, I'm a big guy. The dress code for the state is business casual, unless you're working at the central office or a public-facing position. I worked on the phones 90% of the time, and on this day in question in 2018, I was wearing the one and only suit I own. Another thing about me is I DM for a D&D game every Thursday at a friend's house. And on this day, as I was leaving work, my friend calls me up and asked if I could pick up some new dice, as his 3 dogs decided that his dice looked like treats. So I hit a local game store on my way to his place, and while I was there, I noticed a frustrated young woman trying to convey something to the owner, and she was using American Sign Language, the only other language I understand other than English. So I tap her on the shoulder and sign to her to see if I could help her out. She then explained that she was looking into getting into D&D with some of her deaf friends from school. So I asked some questions and found that they've never played and she's going to DM. I help her get everything she'll need for new players, and she was so happy that someone could help her out using ASL, and she thought it was really thoughtful of the owner to learn. I then explained to her that she had been talking with the owner when I got there, and that I myself was just an avid D&D fan, and I was stopping in for some dice. She then looks at me confused and signed, "So you don't work here?" I say, "Nope, I just wanted to help since I know sign language," and we laughed. So getting back to the dice, that's when Karen strikes. Karen comes in and she starts yelling at me, thinking I'm the owner of the store, wanting to know why the owner was spending all of his time helping the cute young woman, but would not be bothered to help an elderly customer who wanted to get her grandchild a video game. And I do want to note that this game store does not sell video games. Now let's paint a picture of Karen. She's about 5 feet tall, standard Karen haircut, and maybe 240 pounds in weight. The actual owner of the store then pipes up and says that he can help Karen. That's when Karen points at me and says that she's getting help from the owner. That's when the actual owner of the store and I look at each other, and he says to the lady, "He doesn't work here. I'm the owner of this place, and this place does not sell video games." And this is where Karen explodes on why does a game store not sell video games, and what is she gonna do now? She then waddles over to me and she starts poking me in the chest, ranting something along the lines of I should be nicer to older customers, as they're the ones keeping my store open. At this point, I pull out my state employee badge and point at it and say really slow, "Lady, I don't work here. You can go next door to Fred Meyer's." I then explain to her that by federal and state law, poking me in the chest, she was guilty of assault. At this point, that's when she sputters and starts to slap me. When I start to talk again, she slapped me again, and at this point, I got ticked off. I stood to my full height and yelled at the top of my lungs that if she touched me one more time, that I would defend myself and she will not like the results. At this point, the owner's called the police and he's got the phone on speaker. We all hear when dispatch states that the officer's 2 minutes out. The woman then screams and tries to slap me again. This time, I catch her by the wrist, spin her around, and pin her hand to her back. And this is when the police show up. Now, when you have a guy standing a foot plus taller, holding a screaming woman at bay, cops are automatically gonna think that you are in the wrong. Officers then scream at me to let go of the woman, and I said I will, as long as she won't hit me again. That's when Karen starts going off, how I hit her and that she was defending herself and that I need to be arrested. Officer 2, hearing this, pulls his taser out and says, "Man, you need to let her go now." That's when I let her go and raise my hands to head level. That's when Karen spins around and kicks me and then slaps me again. The owner of the shop says that that's the 3rd or 4th time that she's assaulted this customer. Officer 1 then places Karen in handcuffs and he escorts her to her car. Officer 2 is still pointing the taser at me and he wants to cuff me. That's when I explain that that's not gonna happen as I've done nothing wrong and that he needs to call a sergeant if he's actually gonna try to arrest me. Officer 2 steps back and says, "Are you resisting arrest?" I said no, but I'll be exercising my rights to a lawful investigation prior to arrest. You know, innocent until proven guilty. And that I was the one defending myself from being assaulted by that screaming woman that your partner just took outside. That's when Officer 1 comes back in and says Karen's been detained and she's demanding a supervisor. The store owner pipes in with his side of the story and explains that Karen attacked me twice, and she was in the process of assaulting me a 3rd time before I restrained her and they came. Long story shorter, the sergeant shows up and Karen was arrested for assault, and hell yes, I pressed charges. From what I was told by the sergeant, this was her 12th incident for similar issues, but the first time she got violent with someone. I find it so funny, guys, that the first time she got violent was towards someone who stands at 6'2" and is 340 pounds. Like, that is the last person you'd want to get violent with, but that's entitlement for you though. Some people really think that they can do what they want, when they want, with no repercussions, just like this next guy. So I've been mistaken for an employee more times than I can count. It doesn't matter the store, the time of day, what I'm wearing, someone will ask for help. My fiance didn't believe me at first, but now that we grocery shop together, he's noticed how often someone will ask me where something is or if such thing is in stock. A few times, I can reason away as a stranger asking another stranger for help. Most of these cases are little old folks who just want to get their stuff and leave, or they can't reach something high up. Other times, I chalk it up to having a friendly face, despite my best attempts at developing resting bitch face. But more often than not, it's some moron who doesn't give a damn who helps them, only that they need help right now. This is the 3rd type. So I'm in the store and I have a basket over my arm and I'm checking my list when a dude walks up very close to me. The guy asked if I can call someone to the sporting goods area. I'm in the plumbing area and I'm wearing a dress and sandals and my very cute Pikachu mask. I'm used to responding to strangers' demands for help and I politely tell him that I don't work at the store, but I just saw an employee 1 aisle over that should be able to help. Hearing me say that, the guy stares at me long enough that I'm beginning to suspect that he didn't hear me. I go to repeat myself and his face goes full on dark red and y'all know where this is going. The guy then does a little rant about how he needs help and is it really so hard for me to take a second and walk to the counter with him, and I shouldn't be on my phone anyways at work. Again, I've heard it all before in some way or another, so I just roll my eyes and walk away, which is a big mistake apparently. The guy then grabs my shoulder, spins me around so fast that I drop my phone and the basket I'm holding. Now, I'm not a big person at all, and I do have some history that makes this not a good idea at all, on dude's part. This is when the warrior spirit takes over my body, and I grab his fingers and wrench them back as hard as I can, causing him to scream loudly. The guy tries to jump back, but I'm holding onto his fingers hard, and that's when I feel the knuckles pop. The guy's now looking wide-eyed between me and the two now limped fingers on his hand. I'm too stunned at what I've done, and I don't move. At some point, probably after the screaming, the employee comes to investigate, and he's suddenly right next to me asking what's going on. The dude, meanwhile, is cradling his hand, and he yells, "She broke my effing hand. Call the cops." At this point, though, I'm starting to feel my anxiety and embarrassment flare up, and I quickly pick up my phone and the basket from the floor. The employee's radioing the manager, and I just start putting my stuff back inside my basket. The dude is yelling, and he won't let the employee see his hand. I stand back up and wait. For what or why, my little brain doesn't know. All I know is I've reverted back to a 10-year-old who's been sent to the principal's office. The manager summons the police officer that's been staking out our grocery store since lockdown. The cop comes up and asks what happened, and statements are taken. The dudes calm down, and I'm asked to wait in the manager's office, and I'm stuck there for close to 3 hours until the officer comes to ask if I want to press charges. Stunned, I quickly say no without thinking. He says, "All right, I'm free to go." It turns out I was assaulted and defend myself per the security footage, and the employee that was one aisle over. He heard me and dude talking, and then dude yelling, and then my tiny girl voice ring out a defiant tiger roar, so he backed up what the video showed. I had dislocated 2 of dude's fingers, and somehow had dug my nails into his hand hard enough to draw blood. He had been told in no uncertain terms that I did not work there, and what the F was wrong with him grabbing someone like that. Even if I had been an employee, he would have been in serious trouble, and he was lucky that I didn't want to press charges. To quote the wonderfully funny John Mulaney, whose comedy specials I binged when I got home that night, so I grabbed my stuff, and I left. Hopefully that guy learns to not grab random strangers anymore, guys. Like, what a painful lesson he's learned. But seriously, who does that? Like, I've read so many stories where random strangers just grab and spin people around. And this is what people get. Sometimes others will fight back. Opie does come back with an update though, guys, that says that her fiance pushed her to press charges, and they went to the police station to press charges on the guy. So yeah, happy ending. So this happened just a few hours ago, and I still can't get over the absurdity of it all. I've been going on walks every day so I can get exercise. Also, because I need to walk my dogs. I also don't have a lot of shoes, as I don't have a lot of money, so I try to limit excessive amounts of stuff. With that said, I recently sold some old tech, so I could get some money to buy some new shoes, as my old shoes have a few holes in the sole. I managed to make around 80 pounds from selling the stuff, so I was gonna buy myself some decent shoes. Now to get into the story. I had gone to a store close to my house to get a nice pair of shoes, as I know they have some really good deals at the moment near me. Now, the uniform for the place is a black polo shirt with white stripes and the logo on the back. I had decided to wear a polo shirt that my dad had given me and a pair of maroon jeans, along with my very worn out shoes. I had found a pair of walking boots that were pretty expensive, and I was having a look at them. I asked about them, but when I found out they didn't have my size, I went to go put them back on the shelf. And that's when enters Karen. Karen comes and smacks me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, I've been waiting for ages for service. Now, do you have these shoes in a size 6? Me, obviously alarmed, said, "I'm sorry, can you please not touch me? Also, I don't know if the store does. I don't." And before I could tell her that I don't work here, Karen scoffs and says, "What the hell do you mean you don't know if the store does? It's your job to know. Now go to the back and see if you have a size 6. She then shoves the shoes into my hands, and I say, "No, it's really not my job." That's when Karen says, "Just get me my size 6 shoes already, damn it." Now I was getting quite irritable at this point. I tell her I'm just here to get a pair of shoes for myself. And Karen, almost hissing at this point, says, "You are a liar. You obviously work here. I saw you put a pair of shoes back on the shelf. And you are wearing the polo shirt, so don't you dare lie to me." That's when I snap and say, "Oh my goodness, I'm done being polite. I've tried to tell you that I don't work here. I'm 15 years old and I'm a customer. How narcissistic are you that you think everything you think is right?" Hearing me say that, Karen says, "I'll have you fired for that. How dare you talk this way to customers? Now call your manager over." By now, the few people that were in the store are looking over, and an employee has come over. The employee says, "Excuse me, what's going on and how can I help?" Karen says, "This disrespectful young girl has refused to get me the size I requested, and she is insulting me. She called me a narcissist. I demand to talk to the manager about getting her fired." The employee then looks to me and stares at me for a few seconds with a confused look on his face, before he looks back to Karen and says, "I'm sorry, miss, but she doesn't work here. Also, where..." Karen then interrupts the employee and says, No, you can't just cover for your friend when she did something wrong. Get me the manager." She then proceeds to go into an absolute tantrum, stomping her feet and not listening to anyone who tried talking to her. Reluctantly, after a few seconds, the employee walks off to find his manager. Karen, of course, noticed that, and she looks at me with a grin that looked like she thought she won. The floor manager comes over a minute later, and at this point, I had found a pair of shoes I was gonna buy, so I was holding the shoe in my hand. The manager comes over and says, "I was told to come over to resolve an issue." Karen says, "Do something about this disrespectful young girl." She then points at me, and the manager looks to me holding the shoe, then turns his attention to me and says, "Hi there, did you need something?" I tell him I just came here because I need a new pair of shoes. "Do you have these in a size 5? I showed him the shoe, and that's when Karen goes into an absolute frenzy. The manager completely blanks her, and he went on one of his devices to see what they had in stock. Meanwhile, Karen was going ballistic, yelling all sorts of curses at me, the manager, the store, everybody. The manager tells me, "Yes, we do. Would you like to meet me at the counter? I'll get you the pair and box them for you." The manager then told the employee to call the police to escort Karen out. So with that, Karen ends up going to the police station, and I end up getting a small discount on my shoes for what I put up with. I was talking to the front manager, and he ends up joking that I should work for them because of my shirt. I just need to get new trousers. And that was the end of the story, pretty much. I even had enough money to go buy Subway nearby, so I got myself a sub, a cookie, and a drink. I think I'll have to thoroughly clean my shirt though, after Karen put her disgusting hands on it. Now this is how you deal with Karen's throwing a tantrum, guys. I love how the manager basically ignored Karen, not giving any attention to her. That's definitely the reaction to give someone having a temper tantrum. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, a Karen doesn't get what she wants and she threatens to make everyone homeless. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.